So remember, all the peptides, they don't build your metabolism. Your habits build your metabolism specifically. These are powerful tools, but power without strategy, that is always where problems start. Hey there, I'm Bria, and welcome to the Period Whisperer podcast. If you're over 35 and ready for real answers about your hormones, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe and stay with us. Hey there, sister. Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast. I am Bria. I am your host, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, hormone lover, and really just obsessor about feeling my best in midlife and beyond, and wanting to bring as many women along on this journey with me. So today we are closing out this peptide mini-series. It's our last episode in the 4-part May peptide mini-series. And today we're really talking about the peptides that I think we're seeing more and more and that everyone's asking about right now, specifically, I think, in the female midlife space. This is what I hear the most about, what people are asking me about, and frankly, what I think they should know about if we're considering peptides in perimenopause. We're going to talk about semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide, as well as several others that I think are equally as important. Those ones seem to be the ones that everyone's talking about, everyone's on, everyone has questions on. But I really want to highlight today some amazing opportunities in some peptides that I think for the right person are even more valuable, even more effective, and fewer side effects and fewer stigma if that seems to be bothering you. I know you've seen these transformations in the GLPs. You've heard the hype. Maybe you've even thought, is this what I need? So today we're going to break this down simply and honestly, what these ones actually do, how they're different from each other, what some other really awesome peptides are, who they can help, who should not be using them, and how I'm thinking about them inside of real protocols with my clients. Because if you have listened to this mini series, or maybe you're just tapping into this one, and I do encourage you to go back, especially if you're considering peptides or if you're on peptides, we want to get the best bang for our buck, right? We want to educate ourselves. We want to know our bodies. We want to be able to feel like a 10 as often as we can. I don't think it's possible to feel like a 10 all of the time. But here's the truth. These are powerful tools, but power without strategy, that is always where problems start. So before we get into specifics, always remember, and I'm just going to paint this metaphor for you because I love picturing things in my head. And metaphor, I'm hoping this one sticks with you. Peptides are the icing, not the cake. The icing on the cake, not the cake. They're the sprinkles, the cherry on top, right? It's not the bulk. It's not the base. If you're just eating the icing and we don't have the cake, then you're going to get gut rot. That is what is going to happen. If your foundation isn't there, these don't fix it, right? They might temporarily override it, but you're going to pay the price for it later. So let's talk about the GLPs because I know they are all the rage. I often have friends be like, hey, can we hang out and just talk about peptides, which I am happy to do for sure. But let's break them down because in the GLP category, there are many nuances, of course, but I will talk about kind of the 3 that I'm hearing the most headlines about, the 3 that are coming across my algorithm the most that I'm seeing people talk about. And the first one is semaglutide, which is called a GLP-1, right? What this does, what does it do to the body? It does reduce your appetite, and it does that by slowing the gastric emptying in your gut. It also works on the arousal pathways in your brain, so it can make you feel like, oh, I don't actually need the thing I thought I needed so much. And it improves blood sugar regulation in the body. So especially if you are getting blood work done and you're seeing that A1C creep up a little bit, you're seeing your fasting insulin, your fasting glucose pop up a little bit, it can be very effective supporting those pieces. So it can help a lot with women who have significant insulin resistance, which I always think of insulin resistance as very much your body's inefficient way of creating energy, right? It's not taking the glucose and getting it into the cell with the insulin. So we can feel not only are we not burning things, we're storing things as fat and a weight gain thing, but just in general, the energy efficiency is not happening the way we want it to. It can be really supportive for women who have strong food noise, who have dysregulated hunger signals. Maybe you're just hungry all the time. You're hungry in the middle of the night. And certainly for those of us who feel completely out of control around food. But where I'm seeing this go wrong, and this is where I want you to lean in for all of the GLPs that we're going to talk about today, because there's 3 of them. We're going to talk about them. The biggest problems are happening if you are eating way too little. It breaks my soul when I talk to some of my clients, or one of my clients or my friends bring questions to me and they're like, I have a friend who just lost so much weight and like their hair is falling out. That is not normal. That is not okay. That is a body that does not have the nutrients it needs to thrive. So we are not eating enough. You need to eat enough, like often we'll see the protein intake drop, right? If you don't have an appetite at all, if your dose is way too strong, or maybe it's not what you need because we haven't looked at those labs and the data from your body first as to why you're carrying this extra weight, right? We have to know why. We got to know why we're carrying the extra weight in order to choose the right path. Because for a lot of the time in women, it's not just because we're insulin resistant. But let's say we've looked at the data and now we're taking the GLP and we do not feel hunger at all, or you make the food and you just kind of sit there and feel a little nauseous, or worse, you have worse symptoms, side effects than that. Way, way, way too much. Not normal, not okay. And your, I don't want to say your messed up brain, but your brain as a woman has been conditioned to feel like it's a good thing to not eat. It is. It's weird. It's messed up. It is how we've been trained, but that is not a good thing. Fundamentally, it is not safe for our body to feel that way. And in midlife, we need all the nutrients we can get because our body has a heck of a lot of work to be doing. So if you starve your body of its nutrients, what is going to happen? Yes, we might lose weight. We are also going to lose muscle. And we're going to have metabolisms that adapt downwards instead of upwards. And we're going to lose hair and our skin's going to get kind of papery and saggy. Nobody wants this. This is not what you're going for. It is not worth the cost of weight loss because you do not need to do that to get there. Remember that weight loss without muscle is not a win. It's a setup for failure, period, especially in midlife. We need our muscle because one, we're aging and we need that muscle to protect our bones. But two, our muscle is what helps to create sound hormones when our hormones retire. So all of these things are super important. So semaglutide, GLP-1 can quiet the noise, but it doesn't teach your body how to function without it. That's why we have to make sure we have a framework. We have to have the data before we go on these things. And I recognize that some of these things we're able to get through insurance, some of these things we're able to, pay out of pocket for, but smart thinking, being the CEO of your body is making sure that we are doing this in the order that is going to get us the best bang for our buck. There are always going to be people who try to skip steps, and you will pay the piper for that somewhere along the lines. Okay, I'm getting off my soapbox now. I just really want to emphasize to you that there is some amazing opportunity here in peptides. And maybe it could be the most amazing thing for you. And we still have to do it right. Otherwise, it's going to get a bad rap. And then all of a sudden, there's always people who are quote unquote abusing things. And to me, abusing something is using it not as it's meant to be used or inappropriately. Okay, let's talk about the second one that we're hearing about in the weight loss peptides, tirzepatide. So tirzepatide is a GLP-1 plus GIP. So it adds this second layer. So we get the same slower gastric emptying and appetite suppression from the GLP-1, but we also get deeper insulin and metabolic signaling from the GIP. So it often produces more powerful metabolic effects. It's really great for more advanced metabolic dysfunction in a body. So if it's not just the one problem of insulin resistance and overeating, if you've had insulin resistance and it hasn't responded to other strategies, this can be a really powerful tool. It's great for plateaued clients that need a stronger intervention. That's how we kind of see it used more medically. But in micro dosing and even micro dosing, it can be very effective at, again, just repairing that energy connection in our body so that our body is not stressed about that, right? A lot of food noise comes from a brain that is chronically undernourished and overstressed. And undernourishment might not be that you're not actually putting enough in the body. It might be that the gut is not actually absorbing and breaking down the nutrients needed. So there's, again, a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but it can get laid out in a very customized way to give you the best bang for your buck if it's the right thing for you. And it can be so relieving for people that it is, and it can be so problematic for those of you that it's not. So it works, but it's stronger. So if your protein intake is already low, if your muscle stimulus is missing, meaning you are not working out, you're not bringing that on, if your stress in your life is high, like outside of your body and inside of your body, then you're going to accelerate the wrong things when taking this. So you don't just get faster results, you actually get faster consequences if the foundation isn't there. Now, again, I don't want this to sound all doomsday. I find this a microdose in many of my clients when I refer them to a very safe prescribing practitioner and a 503A compounding pharmacy that has the certifications, has the integrity that we need when we're trying medications and we're injecting things into our body. It can be amazing. It can be the relief that you've needed for so long, and it should not, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face and people are going to argue with me, it should not need to be something you are on forever. It should absolutely not. It should be a corrective mechanism. All of these GLPs should be. They should be temporary, they should be cycled, and they really should help you repair a very specific challenge in your body while you're doing this other work so that when we come off of it, things are back up and running, right? Everything's tickety-boo. Okay. Now let's talk about retatrutide, which I'm hearing more and more and more people talk about. And maybe you're like, Rhea, I have no idea what you're talking about. And that is absolutely okay. I'm going to give you the down and dirty. I'm calling this one the new kid. We are hearing that there will likely be FDA-approved retatrutide actually being prescribed, through doctors from pharmacists starting this summer, I believe, is what is being said. So I feel like everyone is starting to watch this, do some research on it. People are using this already from research labs and gray market peptides. Again, I'm not recommending anything here. I'm just trying to give you this information and what it is so that you're in the know and that you can maybe deepen your research and decide the path that's right for you if it's something you want to try. So this one is a triple agonist, they call it. So what it's doing, again, we're getting all the same things pretty much from the semaglutide, from the tirzepatide, but we're also getting increased energy expenditure. That's the new piece in the body, which means that it's potential for greater fat loss. So then we can use less of it, right? It may support higher energy output versus suppression alone. So we might even feel better taking it. There is some research pointing to support, in your liver with it, which is always a good thing when we're in perimenopause. But here's why I'm cautious and why I think you should be too. This is not just better, it's just more complex, right? So stronger metabolic shifts, more variables, less long, and then of course there's less long-term real world data right now. So just because something is newer and more powerful doesn't mean it's where we want to start. And I say that lovingly because I absolutely have a tendency to be like, well, like if we're looking at it as in like gold, silver, and bronze, why would I do bronze when I can do gold? Like, why wouldn't I do the best? Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best one for you. Again, how do we know if it's the best thing for us? Lock in our foundations, get our data, get your functional labs run, get your Dutch and your GI map run. If you haven't done that, please reach out. Please swipe down and book a free call with me so we can talk about having these done for you. It is very important to know your body and whether you need these things or not. Again, this is why I think it's so valuable in knowing what our body is saying. And of course, I love to run these annually on myself. If it was in a perfect world, that's what I would do. I'd have all my clients come back, and most of them do, to run them annually on themselves so that we can see the trajectory of your body and catch things before the function goes off too far. So with that one, I would say we are seeing, women lose weight, but they're also, they can also lose muscle if they are not eating enough and they are not working out, right? So we have to be very, very, very conscious of that. That this is a icing on the cake. It's a layering that we're doing on a lifestyle where we have learned to prioritize our nutrition, our fitness, our nutrition for our fitness. I think we often get caught up and don't actually think about the fact that if I am lifting weights 3 to 4 times a week, that's an athletic demand. So I need to treat myself like an athlete. That means I need to fuel that way. I need to rest that way. I need to recover. I need to expand my body and stretch that way. You cannot just hit the gym 3 to 4 times, especially in midlife, lift some heavy weights and think that's enough. It's all a part of a holistic picture in our body, right? There's demands that come in and we have to fuel those demands. So remember, these peptides, especially, and all the peptides, they don't build your metabolism. Your habits build your metabolism specifically. And again, these are designed in the best way possible to just correct a missing link. And who I'm talking to here are the women who, aren't going to be qualifying, don't have hundreds of pounds to lose or massive of diabetes or massive insulin resistance. I'm talking to the women that listen to this podcast like me who are doing all of the things and the things aren't working. Right. When this is where we can start to play with peptides in a way that can be very effective for us. So always remember, strength training is non-negotiable. Adequate protein is non-negotiable. And I really think, the amount is going to be different for everyone. But like we're talking, 80 to 140 grams of protein per day. Okay. Blood sugar stability is non-negotiable, right? So you still have to have you can get yourself to be more insulin sensitive with taking a GLP-1. But if you're not doing the things to have stable blood sugar, it's kind of irrelevant. You're always going to be stuck on that medication, and at some point, it's going to stop working for you. Nervous system support is critical. And also, gut support is, I think, a non negotiable. Making sure that your gut is in a really good place so that you are able to get the nutrients that you're making to repair the muscle that you're building, to have the energy in your body that you want. Okay. And my reminder, I think I've already said this, but I'm going to say it again because I think it's so important. You don't need to stay on peptides forever. You need to build a body that doesn't depend on them. That is my philosophy. I think you're going to hear it differently from different people, but I don't want to be injecting myself with things for the rest of my life. I might want to do something in a biohacking way, in a very focused way. I'm going to do this for a purpose. I want to see the results, right? I don't want to do things willy-nilly. I want to know that my investment worked and that I supported that investment in myself the best that I could. So you don't need to be on a GLP-1 forever. You need to build a body that doesn't depend on it. That's what we want. That's what we want. We want correction. All right. Now let's get into some of the peptides that I'm also using in practice and how I'm really thinking about them. And then I'm hearing more and more about. But again, there are so many peptides out there, and I will not be discussing all of them on this podcast as far as I know. We're going to move into June and talk about things other than peptides because I think this is, one tiny area of tools, but we have a lot of other tools that we can use. But there are some really amazing ones that, again, when we're doing the right pieces, when we use them strategically, can make an amazing impact. So there is a newer blend that I have seen come out, certainly from the telehealth company that I trust to refer clients to and that I use for my own peptides. That's really interesting. It is tesamorelin and something called KPV. So it's a bit of a metabolic muscle and gut healing combo. So what it's doing is we've got tesamorelin, which is a growth hormone releasing peptide that really targets visceral fat. So visceral fat is the fat that is or like in the belly or surrounding our organs. Like subcutaneous fat is the fat that gives us cellulite, and visceral fat is the one that kind of pushes our belly out when we still have maybe a bit of a firm belly or just a little like jelly or little skin on the top, but then you have this belly that protrudes and it's firm underneath. That is the most dangerous type of fat that is out there. So it really targets that specifically, and it also stimulates our own release of our own growth hormone, helping us repair our muscle faster, helping us sleep a little bit better, helping us just overall feeling more vital. And then KPV really helps support gut inflammation in a body. So, this combination of these two is really great for someone who maybe has stubborn belly fat and gut dysfunction that maybe they've struggled with for a long time, or they have high inflammation in their body. So, there's some key inflammation markers that we look at in a Dutch and a GI map and blood work, and metabolic resistance. This is not for someone, again, who is not eating enough, right? Someone not lifting weights, someone with unmanaged cortisol in the body. We need to make sure, again, we are lifting weights for this situation. We have the space for our sleep sorted out, that we have at least the building blocks for a happy gut, even if we're not like maybe crossing that barrier and actually seeing the gut healing, then this can be a support tool to help move that along. Fat loss, without metabolic support is really just a temporary rearrangement on the body. This is why we hear stories of people going on weight loss peptides, coming off, and then gaining back even more because we're missing these other pieces. Now, there's another peptide that I have been testing out in practice and hearing more and more really fascinating information about called DSIP. And it stands for Delta Sleep Inducing Peptide. So it's really good for sleep and nervous system. And I have seen it do some really beautiful things, especially for the woman who is wired but tired, right? Like you're having trouble, like maybe you can fall asleep, but you're having issues getting into the deep sleep. So your sleep architecture is off, where you're not having the deep sleep and the REM sleep, and you're not having those cycles. So you're constantly waking up like you have a hyper aroused brain, almost like your brain is always feeling like it's never safe. So you're having that light, fragmented sleep. This is really valuable for that. And I had a client who had done everything, like we had been through all of it, and she'd seen some amazing improvements in a lot of areas, but for some reason, amidst even though we dealt with the gut, we balanced the hormones as best we can, we'd optimized their pathways, we'd done the magnesium, the glycine, the progesterone, we had her sleep hygiene dialed in. She just couldn't get deep, not consistently. So we introduced DSIP, and within weeks, she finally said, "Oh my gosh, I feel like my body is finally letting me sleep again, not forcing it, allowing it." And I think that's a huge one. So it's definitely for someone who has, again, that hyper arousal bit, but it's not for someone with blood sugar crashes waking them up, right? So if you haven't tested out having a snack at night, if you haven't worked on regulating your nutrition throughout the day or regulating your blood sugar with your nutrition, and it's not someone who has not addressed cortisol patterns, right? If your cortisol pattern, and we see this on a Dutch, which is why I love it, is upside down and sideways, we got to work on that first. That's got to be what happens. The DSIP really shines in a body that has the habits, but just has this brain kind of stuck in hyperarousal for whatever reason. And then it can really support getting back down into that deep recovery sleep. Okay, here's two more that I am testing out myself. Fascinating results from CMAX and Selenk. And I'm going to put them together, even though you can get them separately, because they're both really focused on cognitive, I guess, really real fascinating for the brain. So they help with focus issues. They help with anxiety. They help with nervous system regulation. They help with high performing but burnt out women. Okay. Now, always an important nuance. They don't replace nervous system work. We still have to be, doing our walks, getting our eyes in sunlight, having some breath work, having some personal quiet time. But they support this, right? So if you're doing the underlying pieces, or you're hearing me repeat myself here, then these are the things that can kind of advance us. And I have noticed, much more ability to focus at work, more quicker recall, like less anxiety overall in my life, which is really nice. They're about giving your brain a better environment, not doing the job for you. Okay. Now, let's talk about one called MOTS-C. So MOTS-C is really focused around metabolic and mitochondria, right? The mitochondria in our cells are like the little engines in our cells that actually get our cells moving around doing their thing. I think this is one of my favorites when used correctly. It's great for low energy. It's great for metabolic dysfunction. It is great for insulin resistance patterns. So it can be an awesome option for people who are suffering and really don't have much weight to lose, or they're not having, they're just kind of stuck. So before we get to the point where all of those, maybe we also have a lot of weight to lose, this one can be really, really powerful. I had a client that had come in exhausted, plateaued, completely frustrated. And we first, of course, worked on protein intake. We worked on minerals. We worked on that cortisol rhythm. Once those were well underway, we added in the MOTS-C. And I remember her saying, it feels like my energy is clean, not jittery, not forced. And that's when we know it's working with your body, right? All of a sudden, the body's like, oh, like it was just a little broken telephone. Now, all of a sudden, the telephone is corrected. But if we don't have those other foundational pieces, then it doesn't matter that the telephone line is repaired. The telephone's not even plugged in, or charged, anything like that. So again, this one is not for someone who is under eating. It's not great for someone who's in adrenal crash mode, right? We can't out peptide a body in energy debt. So we still have to make sure that we're doing the things to bring the body into balance at all times. Okay, I have two more for you that I think are really, really interesting that I want to talk about. One is called thymosin alpha 1. This is a great peptide for immune support and really just an entirely different category. It's great for immune dysregulation, for chronic illness patterns, for even higher complexity cases. So for people who are having, issues with for chronic sickness, if you even have, there's some support in autoimmune, if we are constantly sick, or maybe you just travel a lot and you're exposed to a lot of things all the time. But I would say with this one, this is where practitioner guidance really, really matters. But there's some support there. So if you're someone who's just like, I can't even get to my foundations because I'm always sick, it's like I just get over a sickness and I'm sick again. That's where something like thymosin alpha can be really supportive for you. Okay, and finally, I want to talk about one that has just been released by the telehealth company that I like to refer to called Clow, Klow. And it is a peptide blend of 4 different peptides. So it has your KPV that we talked about for some good, like gut healing. It has your BPC 157 and TB 500. I've talked about these ones before that are, again, amazing for. So if KPV is good for gut inflammation, BPC is really great for gut lining, as well as just over like tissue repair in the body. So think about tennis elbow, think about plantar fasciitis, think about like niggly pain and frozen shoulders, things like that. It can be so supportive of that, and a lot, especially when it's stacked with TB 500. So that's the third one in there. We have KPV, BPC 157, and TB 500. And then finally, we have GHKCU, also known as the copper peptide, which is amazing for tissue healing, for hair and skin. No, it's not going to make you feel like you just went and had Botox, but it is over time going to help you have smoother, clearer skin, healthier, more vibrant hair, all of these pieces. So as a stack, and I think it's really important with stacks that you know where you're getting them from, because these peptides have to be put in a way and reconstituted in a way that, you know, all the science matters, the acidity, the alkalinity, all of this matters in a way, and we want the integrity of it to be there. So when we're looking at a stack, we want to make sure we're sourcing it properly. But this one in particular is kind of like soup to nuts in your whole metabolism, right? It's really giving you like the deep gut healing, the inflammation healing, the soft tissue healing, and then the overall repair. Again, it's great for for metabolic and inflammation support. It is designed to complement fat loss and gut health work, so we gotta be doing those other pieces. And again, I wouldn't call this a first-line peptide. I don't know that there are many first-line peptides, but this is something I'm looking at in already supported bodies that need a little extra push or want to get there faster, which we all do. All right. That was a lot, but we covered, I think, those ones that I just wanted to share with you today in this final mini series in May was just some of the most common ones, most effective ones, most popular ones that I'm hearing about, especially for women in midlife and perimenopause. A reminder here. It is very important that you source your peptides safely. Quality control medical oversight, consistency, access to evolving products. Like, we want to make sure that someone is looking at your medical records and saying, like, oh, there's a contraindication here. You really shouldn't be taking this thing. We do need that buffer. So, as a non prescribing practitioner, I do not prescribe these, but I can point people in a direction of a place that is safe and that has the quality and the integrity that we're looking for. So, it is so that you're taken care of. I guess that's a good way. Remember that this space in peptides is growing fast. And with that does come risk for sure. So I like to choose to work with sources that I trust because I think my clients deserve that level of care. And I want to encourage you to do the same. If you are feeling like, hey, maybe it's time for me to consider peptides, book a call. Let's first make sure that your body is in the right state and that you understand which peptides might be the right fit for you. And then you can move on to finding a source that's the right source for you. If you are taking one thing from this episode, from this entire peptide mini series, take this. You don't need more peptides. You need the right ones at the right time in the right body. And that's when it can feel like magic. That's when it can feel like, oh my gosh, this is a tool. I wish I'd had this tool earlier, right? So if you are thinking about peptides, if you're already using them, if you're wondering why they're not working the way you had hoped, this is where your strategy really matters. Remember, you can always book a free strategy call with me. We'll figure out exactly what your body needs. But I will tell you absolutely that if you have not had functional lab work done, there's probably a good chance we want to get that done first, just so that we know, so that you know your body. Peptides can be powerful, but only when they're used with intention. And I know that the women that I work with, the women like you who listen to this podcast, you want to know your body. You want to, be able to feel empowered by your own self and that you know the way and you're not always confused and overwhelmed by all of the content that's blowing at us all the time. So instead of wondering if, what, having FOMO, feeling overwhelmed, here's your strategy. Book a call. Let's lock in the foundations. Let's correct any imbalances and make sure your body has the tools that it needs on its own within your control by looking at functional lab work. And then let's ice your cake. All right, sister. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this content is helping you. I'm always open to hearing your ideas. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Pass this on to someone who might be considering peptides. Go out, be more in your life and not just less on a scale. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
If you're 35 plus and ready to stop guessing, start understanding your hormones, and feel your absolute best, hit subscribe. That's what we do here.